Hello and welcome back to Disneyland. I've got Alice with me today, and she represents England. Again, I'm trying to use Disney characters that represent the different cultures of the world, and so today I'm using Alice. And today we're going to finish up our build exercise for the Small World ride by building the Small World Toy Shop, and that's going to sit right over here. This is the gift shop that you pass by as you exit the Small World ride at Disneyland. Here's a photo of the gift shop. It has some intricate detail, like the sign above the entrance and the arches all the way around. Notice especially the columns that support those arches and how detailed they are. I want you to take a good look at those because we actually have those columns on a building piece that we're going to use. Here's another shot of the building as you're on the ride approaching the exit. Notice that the building appears to be 8-sided. We can see that in the previous photo and in this one. I'm not going to be able to build something with that shape and have all the detail that I want, so I'm going to simplify my building and make it 4-sided. Notice too that the bridge that you cross over to leave the ride takes you right up to the building, but that's not the main entrance. The main entrance is actually on the right, presumably to draw in people who are walking by and not going to go on the ride. Since my ride is a self-contained toy box, I'm going to change that too and move the main entrance to the left where we leave the ride. I think that's going to fit the toy box better. Here's a closer look at where you enter the building as you leave the ride. You can see that the building walls are white. And notice some of the pillars are embedded into the wall as decorations. We're going to do that in our build too. Now, none of those photos really show you what the roof is like, so here's one more photo that shows the roof. It's striped with muted peach and green colors, and it looks a bit like a tent. And in fact, the roof looks similar to the covering of King Arthur's carousel, and we're actually going to build this roof the same way we built the carousel back in episode 24. So as we get started here, first thing I want to mention is that if you don't want to take the time to build this toy shop, then what you can do is change the style of this block to match the grass that we're using over here, which is Rapunzel's Kingdom from Tangled. And then you can run the flower bed and that fence all the way down here and drop another topiary on this terrain seam. And the topiary will cover that up, and this will look pretty finished. That's actually what I had in this toy box originally. But if you want to build the toy shop like I'm going to do today, let's go ahead and pick this piece up, and we're going to make a tweak here for our build. I'm going to change that block, and I'm going to change this block. And yeah, let's do that. And then we're going to build the sidewalk all the way down the side here. This is going to surround the building. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to start with. Now to build this, we're going to need a replayer. I'm going to get to that in a minute. We're going to need 2 buttons and a repeater, and this is the same trick that we used back in episode 24 to build King Arthur's carousel. We're going to do that same thing here. We're going to need some building blocks. For the roof, we're going to use this piece. This is the upside down short support arch, and you're going to need 20 of them. All right. Half of them are going to be styled using the Agrabah Palace stucco, like you see here. And those are styled with that, as well as an onion dome from the blocks drawer. That's styled with the same shape. The other half of these arch blocks are styled using the lizard theme. If we scroll down, that's this one. And that's actually a nice light muted green that matches what's in that picture. So that's what we need there. Now for those pillars, what we have are these buildings right here. And if you notice the pillars that are supporting that, that's exactly the same shape that we have around that gift shop. So we're going to use these buildings for those pillars. And as I was looking at how I could do this, I was noticing that the building blocks here are about that same height. So that made me think we can actually use those pillars as our decorations around the toy shop, and that gave me some hope to try to build this. And so that was my inspiration for trying to build this, and this is what I ended up coming up with. I'm going to drop this block here temporarily, and we're going to change this to the style that we're going to use for white, and that's going to be the Plastic 2 style, and that's down near the beginning of the styles list. If you go past the beginning of that, you come to Plastic 2. I'm going to set that to be my theme. All right, then we'll go ahead and delete that. We're going to put these down with a replayer, and you'll see why we're doing this in a moment, but we're going to take the playback interval on the replayer to 0. And for the first layer of the building, we're going to put those blocks down with the replayer. So we step on the replayer. On my Wii U, I press B to start recording, and I have to step off to get back into the replayer. And now we're going to fill in the area here, or within the sidewalk. We're going to put those in like that. And we're going to drop one more block in here. It's going to be this vaulted platform. We're going to actually bring this up 2 levels and drop it just like that. Okay? And then I'm going to exit. We're going to step back on the replayer to get our menu in the lower right. I press B to stop recording and A to clear. All right? And just press A, or whatever button you're using for your console. Press that 1 time so you don't corrupt that replayer. All right, so now that we have those, we're going to leave that replayer in the cleared state for right now. Now we're going to put in the columns around the building. And we're going to start with this piece. This is the customizable plant cluster that gives us those. Oop, and before we style that, I got to have my power disc on the base. This is for the small world terrain theme. I do not want to switch my entire world to that theme. All right, so now we'll come over and style this. And we'll change the style to this small world turret. I'll set that to be my theme. And you'll notice the base of that kind of has that funny grass type shape around it. And just because I don't want it to look too weird, we're going to go ahead and style it like this. All right, so we're going to just go ahead and cover up a good portion of that sidewalk there, but we're going to do all 4 corners that way. If you don't like it that way, you can change it another way if you like. That's fine. This one is going to sit out a little bit, okay? So it's going to look like that. So 1 nudge out from the other. And then we're going to put the rest of these around the perimeter like that. So this one matches this one in orientation, this one matches this one also matches this one, and this one goes out there like that. So that's going to give us the pillars that we need. Now we're not going to be able to build the rest of the building with those buildings in that shape, so we're actually going to come into the styling menu again, and we're going to temporarily change the style on this to the Hoth theme. Okay, here we go. And that's going to make these really short so that we can build the rest of the building on top of this where we need to. And that makes the bounding box for these pieces really short, about 1 block high, which means we can build the rest of the building around it. And then we're done. When we're done at the end, tongue twister, then we'll go ahead and change these back. But this kind of gets them out of the way. All right, so there we go. Now, let me get to my screen grabs here. The next thing we're going to do, go back over to the blocks drawer. And we're going to, actually, since we're right here, we're going to put another one of these down, and I'm going to put this in here just like that, centered in the sidewalk area in the middle there. We're going to raise this up one level like that. Now remember, when we put the replayer down, we had blocks under here, and we had one of these up here. We're going to put another one right there, like we just did, but it's not going to be down with the replayer. And then we're going to build some blocks around this for our building. So we're going to put this one out, two of them out like that. Put some blocks back along here. And some blocks like that. Okay? So that's pretty straightforward. Now, this little plant cluster that we stuck out a little bit is actually going to cover up that seam there in the middle. But these seams over on the side are going to look kind of ugly. And so we're going to cover those up with some little wall pieces here. The short block wall. I'm going to put these along the sides. Like that. And on the other side as well. That's just going to look better as we're on the ride and as we're coming into the toy box. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, now for the roof, as we begin to frame that in, let's go back over to the front of the drawer here to these blocks. Okay, we're going to put these in temporarily as little spacers, and we're going to drop one right here in the center of that, another one up on top of that, and then we're going to put the onion dome on top of that. And we have to put this in before we put the rest of the roof in, because once we put the rest of the roof in, you will not be able to drop another block up here. Okay, and then we can take these out. And at this point, we are ready to start putting in our path. And so we'll go over to the Creativitoys drawer, to the Path Creator. We're going to put this right here on this little seam and back it up one nudge. Okay, so half a block back, and I'm going to drop that. That should put me in point collection mode. And then we're going to do the same thing. The middle of the block over here, one nudge back. Right by this seam, one nudge back. And then directly across from that other block, one nudge back. And I'll exit. And then we go into the properties for our path. And we want to turn on looped and turn off auto start objects when connected. All right, so there is the path where the roof pieces are going to go. Now, we're going to use the same trick that we used back in episode 24 to automatically reset that path so we can save ourselves some time. So on our repeater, we're going to change the properties and put it to 1 second, which is the smallest I can put that. We'll use this button to start the repeater. So new logic connection when pressed. That will turn on the repeater. This button, new logic when pressed, we'll use that to turn off the repeater. And on the repeater, we'll do a new logic connection on repeat. We'll come up to our path. And we'll do a reset and stop. So every second, this is going to do a reset and stop on the path. So we can change the block properties as we're attaching them, as you saw back in episode 24, and it'll automatically update those things for us as we're connecting them to the path and updating their properties. All right, so there we go. We're set to go and start building the roof. So I'll show you how to do a couple of blocks here, and then I'll do the rest offline. So we'll grab our first block. I'm going to do a new path connection. Come over to our path, and we'll connect that up. And now we'll select this block and open up the properties, toy box path. And on the properties for this, we need to set the orient along the path property on. For the reset point percentage, this is going to be incremented by 5. So we're going to go 0 and then 5 for the next block, 10 for the next block, and so on. And so we'll do 5 for this one. We're not going to start with 0 because the block is going to end up right on top of this one. So we're going to change this to 5. Vertical offset needs to be 2. We're going to raise that up just a little bit, and all the rest of those are fine. And now that didn't move into position because I had not pressed the button over here to start our replayer, so let me do that. Okay, so now that repeater is going to go off every second, as you can kind of see now that we're in Spark mode. You can see that's going off every second and updating, doing a reset on our path. So now when we connect the next block, new path connection, and we come over here. See, that would have ended up right on top of that block. So we're going to come into the properties, toy box path. Again, we orient along the path. For the reset point percentage on this one, we increment by 5. So the previous one was 5. The new one will be 10. Vertical offset needs to be 2. Okay, so you're going to do that with each of the other 18 blocks over there. Increment that reset point, or that reset percentage by 5 all the time till you get all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and do that offline, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've connected up all of the blocks but one. It took me about 10 minutes to connect all of these blocks, so that's not too bad. We'll connect that up to our path. And now the previous block I had hooked up, the offset was 95. And so for this one, turn this on. We'll leave the reset point percentage as 0, and all we have to do is raise the vertical offset up. And there we go. There is the roof for our building. And at this point, believe it or not, we are almost done. Let's come over here and turn off our repeater. Because we're done with that. And we can actually delete those controls because we don't need these now anymore. Alright, so now we're going to come over here to our pieces. Actually, before we do that, we need to come back over to our replayer. And we need to step on the replayer to get our menu in the lower right corner. And we're going to playback, which on my Wii U is Y. And that puts all of those blocks in the middle. And it will put those back because the style on these pieces here are Hoth. They're small enough. And the bounding box on those is such a way that you can actually put those in there. Or the replayer can put those in there. And it won't be a problem. So now we have the base of our building back. And you'll notice the little roof piece in here is back as well. And that just kind of fills in some of that underneath there. This little corner piece on that, you're going to see why we need that in a moment. But now we come back over to each of our pieces here. Here we go. Selecting those can be a little tricky. And we come back into our styling menu. And we're going to style those back to be the Small World style. I'll apply that. And look how those columns look like they're perfect for that. And this one sits right out in front and kind of puts a nice little decorative edge on that. And notice how the columns in the back are embedded. They're kind of half in, half out of those blocks. So that's really cool. But you basically just go all the way around now and style all of these pieces to be Small World. Again, you can't really do an apply all or theme all because that'll change all of your plants in here, and you don't want to do that. You've got those briar ridge trees behind the hedges there and some other things that you don't want to mess up. Selecting these can be a little tricky, as you can see. There we go. And for some reason, these pieces add a lot of lag in the toy box. So now I've added some lag, but it's only when you're in the editor that it does that. All right, now that we have that, we can go ahead and delete this replayer. And there we go. There is our toy store. The Small World Toy Shop. And that looks pretty good. I like how that looks when you approach it from this side on the exit for the ride. You can kind of get a little bit better look at it. And of course you're going to be able to see that as you're coming out of the ride itself, just like in the real Disneyland. So I like that. I like the way that looks. Well, that's it for the toy shop. I know it's not an exact replica, but I think it still looks pretty good. And now that we're done with that, that means the build exercise for this toy box is finished. Next time, we'll work on the logic for the ride. Until then, I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video today, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let me know what you think of my recreation of the toy shop. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you like Disney Infinity, just click my photo in the lower right corner of this video. You can also follow me on my blog. That's all for me today. Take care.